Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery, and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's episode is called You Never Talk. Full-service gas stations are something we're just not accustomed to today. Many of us have never experienced an attendant coming out to pump your gas, check the fluids in your car, wash your windshield, and send you safely on your way with a smile and a have a good day. But in the 1950s and 1960s, everyone expected this type of service. On September 1st, 1966, 49-year-old Everett Delano, who was known to his friends as Red, was working at Sanborn's garage in Andover, New Hampshire. The retired Navy veteran lived nearby in Wilmot Flat with his wife, Blanche, and their 3 children. Red worked full-time as an overnight security guard at Colby Sawyer College, but volunteered his time part-time at the garage. That day, the owner, Kenneth Sanborn, had to run errands and asked Red if he would watch the station for a few hours. At 8:50 a.m., Kenneth waved goodbye to Red as he saw him pumping gas for a customer. At around 10 a.m., the next customers to arrive at the garage found no attendant on call. When they walked inside to investigate, they found Red covered in blood on the garage's office floor. When the New Hampshire State Police arrived, they assumed that Red had been badly beaten in the midst of a robbery, but when he was taken to New London Hospital, it was found that the injuries consisted of 3 gunshot wounds. He was taken to Mary Hitchcock Hospital, where the following day, he succumbed to his injuries and passed away. An autopsy and evidence at the scene would show that Red had been shot twice while he was standing and then once more after he fell to the floor. As the investigation began, the owner, Mr. Sanborn, told officers that according to the tally sheet, which was kept next to the cash register, several cars came through the station that morning. With the money they paid and the money that was always kept in the register, he could tell that between $75 to $100 had been stolen, leaving only pennies behind. Surprisingly, a cash box was kept hidden below the register. It was untouched and still had $500 inside of it. From the office itself, several slugs, including one .22 caliber, were found without casings. Close to where Red fell, a cigarette had been thrown down and extinguished. It, along with hair found near the register, were taken as evidence. The customer who called police was a man named Leon Weber. Weber arrived at Sanborn's with 2 other individuals at about 10 a.m. When no attendant came out of the garage, they stepped inside to see what was going on. There, they met 2 other young men who stated that there was a man asleep on the floor inside, who they assumed was drunk. When Weber entered, he found that Red was on the floor with all this blood around him. He then called the authorities. Once Red was transported to the hospital, officers began to look at their surroundings and found that water was still running in the bathroom sink. At the request of investigators, Mrs. Sanborn turned off the sink at its pump to maintain crime scene integrity. Several fingerprints were found and samples were taken. On September 7th, the prints were sent to the FBI for further analysis. A detailed diagram of the crime scene was created and people in the area were questioned. Several heard gunshots around the time of the murder. Descriptions of what was thought to be the perpetrator's car were gathered and roadblocks were set up. At least one suspect was taken into custody, but was quickly cleared and released. One woman, Mrs. Marilyn Bacon, stated that she had drove past Sanborn's the day of the murder at about 9:25 a.m. She saw Red, and the 2 waved at each other as she continued on her way. The times given by witnesses pointed to the robbery and murder having taken place between 9:30 and 10 a.m., but investigators would be able to drill that time frame down even more. Red's watch had been found on the floor of the office. It, too, had been struck by a bullet, and it stopped at 9:35. In an attempt to find the murder weapon, .22 caliber firearms were collected from local residents. They were compared to the slugs found in the garage's office and those recovered from Red's body, but none were a match. Anyone who had bought .22 caliber rounds in the vicinity of the murder were checked, and all were cleared. The Blackwater River in Andover was searched several times in hopes that the murder weapon had been disposed of there, but the searches turned up nothing. By the end of 1966, all leads had been followed and exhausted. Red's case would slowly grow cold for over 47 years. Decades later, in 2013, members of Red's family contacted New Hampshire State Police to determine the status of his case. An investigation showed that his case was so old when the cold case unit was started in 2009, his case was missed and just filed away. With all of the new fingerprint and DNA databases available, there was a good chance that their suspect was now identifiable. Luckily, all the evidence had been sent to the FBI for testing, and it still sat in their vaults, perfectly preserved. The lone cigarette butt and hair recovered from the scene were tested, but no DNA was found in either sample. Surprisingly, Red's file contained nothing that told investigators whether or not the FBI had tested the prints from the original investigation. The prints taken from the running faucet were run through AFIS, the automated fingerprint identification system, finally giving investigators the lead that they were looking for. The prints came back to a man named Thomas Cass. 67-year-old Cass had quite a criminal record that included possession of a sawed-off shotgun, armed robbery while wearing a mask, aggravated assault, and manufacturing drugs at a federal prison. Further investigation revealed that Cass was known to his many ex-wives and friends as a businessman and a crook. Stories about Cass included terrorizing families, beatings, threatening lives, and taking them. One ex-wife had to take out a restraining order on him. All agreed he used violence to get what he wanted. The cold case unit soon found Cass living in Orleans, Vermont. Their first interview with him came in the fall of 2013. When investigators asked if he knew anything about the murder in Andover, he said no. He didn't even know where Andover was. He stated that he'd grown up mostly in Vermont. After his marriage, he and his wife moved to Springfield, Massachusetts in 1966, but he was soon arrested on robbery charges and jailed. Their next interview happened in November of 2013. This time, Cass voluntarily gave a DNA sample, but refused to take a polygraph test as he proclaimed his innocence. As soon as the interview was concluded, a search warrant was executed on Cass's residence in an effort to find the weapon used in 1966. No firearms were found on the property. The last interview was held in late February of 2014. Investigators arrived unannounced at Cass's residence, claiming that they had forensic evidence taken from the scene of the crime in Andover that matched Cass. Again, he proclaimed his innocence, but this time he asked for an attorney. 4 days later, before charges could be filed or before Cass could be taken into custody, a 911 call was received that stated Cass had taken his own life. When his live-in companion was questioned, she stated that Cass shot himself to avoid prison, as he thought he was soon to be arrested for Red's murder. She also stated that he never discussed the murder investigation with her or acted strangely in the days before his death, even though after his first interview he had made her the beneficiary of his entire estate. He also told her, "You never talk about something that has no statute of limitations." In the days leading up to his death, she saw Cass with a large sum of money. It is suspected that the money was used to purchase the gun that he used to end his own life. Investigators agree that aside from the fingerprint match, Cass's actions point to guilt, and that comment, "You never talk about something that has no statute of limitations," is certainly telling in itself. Unfortunately, there will be no charges filed. In 2019, the case was finally closed, citing Cass as their culprit. This case, like so many others, doesn't offer complete closure to Red's family, but serves as an example of how their search for justice never stopped and helped progress the case to its resolution. In a statement to the press, they said, "Our family would like to take the opportunity to not only thank the initial investigators of our father's homicide, but also the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. Without their diligent efforts, we would not be here today. We're happy this day has come where our family has been given a small measure of justice. There was a very long time our family didn't know if we would ever receive the answers about what happened that day. Today, our family has the long overdue answers we have been waiting for. Case cracked. I would like to thank the Concord Monitor, the Department of Justice website doj.nh.gov, newspapers.com, and the Press Herald. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case. And here she is now to discuss it with us. Well, Christy, a lot of things to talk about with this case. The first one that sticks out a little bit is, so they track Cass down in 2013. Of course, we know he ends his life in 2014. But the case doesn't get officially closed until 5 years later?
I know, and it seems ridiculous, doesn't it? I see this happen a lot, though, in smaller towns.
Yeah.
When I looked it up, Susan Morrill, the head of the cold case unit, said that her office waited more than 5 years to announce its findings due to routine verification procedures, made more difficult because her department lacked the full-time resources needed to go public in a timely fashion. She said the department's efficiency suffered after its lone full-time prosecuting attorney was promoted to superior court judge in 2011, and that just left them with part-time staff. So it just took 5 years to process.
Well, it's weird because, of course, you want people to be able to get promoted and take on new positions and all that kind of stuff, but you'd hope that they're backfilling those old positions a little quicker. I mean, this is 5 years that case is sitting there like that. But
I know.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, obviously we're talking about smaller towns, budget constraints, all that kind of stuff. I know there's a lot of different factors, but it just feels a little extra heartbreaking because this was already a tough case. Like, how many times in that script am I saying they tried this, but there was nothing. They tried that, but there was nothing. I mean, I get that it was a tough case, but then you've got this angle about the family having to kind of nudge the cold case unit.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, in a way, there's something about it that feels like Red's case didn't quite get the attention that it really deserved. I mean, 47 years is a long time.
It is. And no, it doesn't seem like it got the attention it needed. And just looking at Red's picture, I couldn't help but I just kind of liked the guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else does that, but you know, after you see some of the pictures and you hear the case, you're like, oh, come on, don't drop the ball here.
Yeah. Yeah. And someone that, you know, served the country, was serving his local community. I mean, being a security guard for a local school like that, helping out people on top of that, you know, doing this, working at the service station, helping the owner out and all that. I mean, just, it's tragic on a lot of levels.
Yeah, it is. I keep thinking, why in the world would you kill a man over $100 and then just forget about it?
And I gotta say, like, I mean, I know inflation and, you know, like $100 isn't what it used to be, but even for 1966, like it's $100, man. I don't know. And maybe there's something, maybe he thought there was more in there, but I mean, even at that point, why not just conduct it as a robbery? Like, why are you I'm wondering if there was a struggle that broke out or, you know, Red tried to defend the amount of the money or opening the register. Something seems like it went wrong in all this.
Well, and it's not even his business. And look at how he's trying to protect this man. Right. I mean, there was $500 under that register in a box.
Yeah.
And he never told them about it. He essentially, you know, he saved them that money and lost his life in the process. It just breaks your heart.
Yeah. Was there other charges? I know that you kind of worked in some of the previous charges that Cass had. Was there anything in particular about ending someone's life? Or, I mean, we know that violence, particularly with his loved ones, it's weird to say it like that, but with the women in his life was kind of a normal thing. But any other signs like this? I mean, we know robberies in there, but anything?
I didn't run across anything.
Okay.
The way he worked police through the first couple of interviews, his answers, you know, they didn't find any guns on the property. Things like that make me think that he was used to answering these questions and getting away with some things. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were murders out there that they just can't connect him to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't surprise me at all.
It is weird to think about that somewhere out in this world, you know, a gun could be floating around. It could be sitting in someone's closet. They don't even know that it was used for ending a man's life.
I mean, you inherit guns.
Yeah.
I know down here, you trade guns. My granddad traded an old truck that hadn't ran in decades for a pistol.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like it. I've inherited it now, but I don't know its past. I don't,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, I
Yeah.
heard some friends at the gym that are like, hey, yeah, I've got this shotgun. You want it? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. Weapons stick around, almost like jewelry. They just kind of change hands. But very thankful that the evidence was preserved by the FBI.
Perfectly preserved for all that time.
Of course. It's a bummer that the DNA didn't play out. That just would have been a bit firmer. But, the fingerprint analysis is certainly enough. And I think a lot of people would look at Cass's actions, that statement, but also, him kind of running from this as a big sign that they got their right man. So, Christy, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Brandy Fry, Jennifer Dixon, Sigrid E. O'Hearn, and Angela Welch Sola. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There, you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee, like Catherine Simpson and Mary True recently did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to understand the many unsolved cases we also cover, and we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. We do all of our presentations with limited ads. Some of them don't run ads at all, and we can't do that without the amazing support of viewers just like you. Remember, you can get another Lord and Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon below if you want to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And of course, I'll be back with a new unsolved mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.